Hi, it's Tricia Johnston, residential realtor with Blum with your real estate tip of the week. If you're selling your home during the holidays, you may be wondering if it's okay to decorate as usual. I think it's fine to decorate, but there are some do's and don'ts that you'll want to keep in mind. Make sure you wait until after the professional photos are taken before you put out your decorations. Keep decorating to a minimum. You'll want them to enhance your house and make it feel warm and welcoming. Use decorations that'll highlight some of the architectural features of your home, like a beautiful staircase or fireplace mantel. And if you have any holiday music playing in the background, make sure it's playing softly. As for the things you'll want to avoid, don't go overboard. Too many decorations will make your home feel cluttered and will serve as a distraction. Don't put out a large Christmas tree or any oversized decorations unless you have the space for it. Those can make a room feel a lot smaller than it actually is. And don't put out too many presents during showings or an open house. I'm Tricia Johnston with Blum, wishing you and your family a wonderful holiday season.
Do you need cash? Do you want to consolidate debt? Premier Credit can help. They provide quick and confidential loans for any reason. Their service is same day and most loans are approved within minutes. You can apply in person or by the phone. Their experienced and knowledgeable loan professionals will leave you feeling confident that your loan is being properly handled in a secure manner. Premier Credit can be reached at 225-667-8100, or you can email WeSayYes@premiercredit.com, or stop by and spin the wheel at 139 Del Norte Avenue in Denham Springs. They're open Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and are a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. So you do boarding. We know that. Tell me a little more about that, the day boarding, for example.
Okay, well, so the boarding that we have for people that go out of town and everything. Yeah. We do basically our home. It's a home-based business that we have, and it's free roam.
Okay.
Meaning that we have instead of putting dogs in a cage all day long, they're actually able to roam around our house. We have dog beds all over our house, as well as our sofas and everything like that. Dogs will play with each other. They'll go and lay on beds. It's kind of more of a relaxed. It's like they're on vacation as well. You know, it's a very relaxed setting for them.
Yeah.
They get to interact with other dogs. It's very much a group social environment. So we do have to turn down people sometimes because they will. Luckily in this parish, especially in Denham, you know, we have a lot of honest people.
Yeah.
And they're upfront with me when they tell us, look, my dog doesn't get along with other dogs.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not one to just sit there and be greedy and take all the money. I was like, well, your dog's not really suited for us.
Yeah.
You know, because this is the environment we have, and I can't risk of any danger to the other dogs that are here if another dog's going to attack, a dog staying with us.
That's right.
So we do, we try to be responsible, and we try to have that high. And that's why we have such great reviews, because we are honest. We're upfront. We let people know what's going on. So
and it's cage free.
Yeah,
and which is a great thing.
During the day, it is. At night we do kennel them for their safety.
Sure.
Because if we're asleep, we don't know what they might get into.
That's right.
And so that's what we like to tell people. I said, look, if your dog's not used to being kenneled, we actually have had dogs sleep with us. In our bed, at the foot of our bed, we've actually put a kennel at the foot of our bed so they can just see us at night so they can sleep. We have dog beds in there too, so they're just used to sleeping in a dog bed in the same room. I have a 60-pound boxer that loves to just snuggle up next to me.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
Now you do meet and greets before or you offer these, where what goes on during that process?
So some people are, even though we've had hundreds of reviews, we've had a lot of good word of mouth business, and I mean, people can obviously see our passion. Some people are still skeptical.
Yeah.
And so they want to come see our business. They want to come see what they want to take a tour of our facility or see what we're about and everything like that.
Absolutely.
So we used to do it inside our home. Now we do it under our carport and everything like that. But it's basically 1 hour where it's like an AMA. You ask me anything.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to know, I'll tell you whatever. I'll tell you what we have going on, what we do, and then give you peace of mind.
Yeah, and it's also an opportunity to make sure the dog is a good fit for you, and you're a good fit for the dog.
Absolutely.
And because dogs have personalities, just like people, and you know, there's maybe just a situation sometimes, I'm sure very rare, but where a particular person, a dog just cannot stand, maybe, or vice versa. You know, sometimes there's just not a click between that human being and that dog. And so those meet and greets are a great opportunity. And as you just said a minute ago, it gives the pet owner the ability to feel comfortable. Yeah. Because they know that the dog gets along with Jeremy or Miss Ainsley. Tiffany Sicard with HomeKey Mortgage combines the experience and knowledge you need to make your mortgage loan a smooth, stress-free process. Reach out to Tiffany for more information on the vast mortgage programs available in the Livingston Parish area. Tiffany Sicard of HomeKey Mortgage, a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. So you have so say you come to my house and I'm saying, you know, I want to sell it, and then I'm like, I may just try to sell this house myself. You know, I sell paint and I'm pretty good at that. Maybe I could sell my house, and thinking that I could really do that. And then, so why would you caution homeowners from the for sale by owner type of process? What is it that a realtor can bring to the table that maybe a homeowner may struggle with?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just having somebody that knows how to dot the I's and cross the T's. They really set themselves up for legal situations to follow this sale. I personally know of 2 people who did for sale by owner who got sued right after the closing for something that I think if they would have had a realtor, it would not have happened. And so they ended up, I don't know how the first one ended up, but the second one, they ended up spending $28,000 to settle a lawsuit, all because they wanted to save a couple of $1,000s listing their house for sale. And the sad thing is, you know, they'll call and say, look, we're going to try for sale by owner. If we don't sell it, we'll call you. And then after they have the lawsuit, they call me and I say, I'm not an attorney. You don't need a realtor now. You need an attorney. And it's sad, but you know, they didn't know. Also, it ends up, I think, costing, even if they don't have a lawsuit, it can end up costing a for sale by owner more money selling it on their own. I represented the buyers at last fall who purchased a for sale by owner. And what he did was he priced his house so high. His mindset, he told me, is, oh, I know it's overpriced, but if somebody likes it, they're going to submit an offer. Well, it sat on the market for 9 months. And my buyer clients wanted to purchase the house. The seller agreed to pay the representation fee, so my clients didn't have to pay a realtor fee. They ended up getting a $330,000 house for $300,000. So the seller never did know what it appraised for, but it appraised for $330,000, and my clients purchased it for $300,000 because he had it so overpriced. He was ready to sell. It had been there for 9 months vacant. And so if he had priced it right to begin with, met with a realtor, saw what the comps were, saw what a realistic price, he could have sold it for what it was worth. So it can really end up costing some money. And then the other thing I would say is exposure. If you have a realtor with an aggressive marketing plan, they're really throwing every net out there to make sure that every buyer looking in that price range and every realtor showing in that price range knows that house is for sale. And that's not the case with a for sale by owner.
Stephanie Berthelot and the crew at SR Enterprise can handle it all, from sheetrock to texture to paint. Give Stephanie a call at 504-432-9284. SR Enterprise, where they spread the paint and you spread the word.
But going back to what you were talking about earlier, is about, having, being first and stuff. The key to business, all right, and I tell people this all the time, and sounds really simple, but it's not, is you have to understand your strengths and weaknesses in business. You really do. You take advantage of where you're strong and you get help where you're weak. All right. The strong part's the easy part. People won't admit, are very stubborn often on that weak side, and don't want to get help, and they end up drowning themselves or making themselves look bad, or, just being their own worst enemy, not knowing it.
Yeah.
Instead of just being very self-aware. So that's the key right there.
Being honest with yourself.
Self-aware, understanding, hey, look, I'm not good at this. I need to get some help. And when you get some help, then it's going to make your business that much better in that spot. And then when you have something strong, don't get complacent with okay, I'm really good at that. No, say, okay, I'm really good at this. Let's take advantage of it. But what's the best way we can maximize our potential with this strength? What's what I'm good at?
It's great advice. And so very true. There's, if you're someone, you're not strong in sales, but maybe you own a business where it requires selling, it's probably a bad idea to go out there knowing, and probably deep down inside, you're not the best salesman, but you're hard-headed, and you go out there and try to sell and you're not closing deals. Get you a good salesman, get you someone out there that is good at what they do, because that's their strength. And that's a hard thing for business owners to accept a lot of times, because business owners are typically very protective of their business. And sometimes they feel like they can do something better than anybody else. And so that is fantastic advice. And I'm sure one of the many keys to, your success in all your businesses. William Waldrep of TWFG Insurance in Denham Springs can service all of your insurance needs. Offering auto, life, health, and commercial insurance, William Waldrep of TWFG Insurance is a proud supporter of Local Leaders, the podcast. That the MAMA unit comes to Livingston Parish. Many areas in Livingston Parish. One specifically that I know of is Dixon Medical right here in Denham Springs. Y'all come out here once a month and perform mammograms. So that's 12 times a year. They're right here in Denham Springs. Now, I do want to mention, and you were kind enough to bring me a sheet today, so I'm just going to read these off of here real quick. But it's not just Dixon Medical in Denham Springs that y'all go to. You go to Cypress Point Family Medical in Albany. You go to RKM Primary Care in both Livingston and Springfield. In Watson, you go to Mandy's Primary Health Care. You even go to Maurepas. You go to Riverside Family Medical in Maurepas. So these are some other places right here in Livingston Parish. It looks like 6 places that you go to in this parish where you don't have to drive in Baton Rouge, ladies. I know there's a lot of ladies out there that they just don't want to fight Baton Rouge traffic. They would rather chew their fingernails off than go to Baton Rouge and have to deal with the traffic, have to deal with the hospital, and have to deal with all that. So Woman's makes it easy. You folks make it easy. You go to all these different sites. And incidentally, if your name's not on this list and you're a family medical center somewhere in Livingston Parish, you're interested, you heard Miss Chapman say earlier, you can certainly contact them and they would get with you on the possibility of having the mobile mammography bus travel to your destination. So I love the fact that you have so many options in Livingston Parish and you come out pretty much, we'll use the Denham Springs example just because that one's local to exactly where I'm podcasting from right now. But you go the same, is it the first week of the month or does that change or how does that work?
So we go with the old Dixon, which they call it now Sage. I think it's Sage Specialty Group. So we go there the first Wednesday of every month. And we usually go to Mandy's Primary Care, which is out in Watson, usually towards maybe a Wednesday or a Tuesday towards the end of the month. It just depends because different places we go once a month, 2 times a year, 4 times a year. Everywhere's something different.
I see. So let me ask you this. I'm going to give you a hypothetical here. Okay, I'm a female and I need to get a mammogram. So I'm going to go and I'm just going to walk up that mobile mammography bus right there in Denham Springs and I'm going to get it? Or do I have to make an appointment? Do I have to have a referral? Kind of take me through the process. This is where I hear a lot of ladies get confused. They see the bus. You can't miss it when you're driving down Florida Boulevard. The problem is they have no idea how to get in there.
Okay, so there's different options here. Okay, so yes, you can come up to us. We rather have appointments just with the COVID going on right now, and we try to, keep everybody spaced. But if you don't have an appointment, please do stop and ask. We require that you have seen a doctor within a year. You need to have a written order with you unless it's a doctor that's on one of our standing order lists. And that's so long, I can't really say all those names.
Yeah, you can call
But just ask us, we can tell you. Just stop by and we can look on the list and tell you. And then you come on in and we'll get your insurance information. We'll go through that process and you just get your mammogram and you're good to go. Now you may have to wait in your car if we have someone in there at the time. Like I say, we're still trying to do spacing and but we can get you done.
So you mentioned insurance. Tell me about that. What type of insurances? And I know you can't go through, I would assume you accept most insurance.
Most insurances, yes. There's only a select few that we don't take. And pretty much everyone, of course, we do the 3D mammograms on the bus also. It's just like at the hospital. And pretty much all insurance are paying for the 3D now. That used to be a big issue when 3D first come out, but everyone's paying for that now for screening. If you don't have insurance, we have other means to help you out also.
Okay.
And also, if you don't have a doctor, we have other means to help you out also. Please stop and ask.
There you go. You can stop by and ask that. Do you accept Medicaid?
Yes.
Okay. So that's
Medicaid, Medicare, all private insurances pretty much.
Fantastic.
There might be 1 or 2 Medicares we don't take, but it's very few.
Okay. So for further information, all you got to do is ask when you see that bus. Now you mentioned the spacing. You mentioned COVID a little bit. So with COVID-19, it's important for your patients to feel safe, even away from Woman's Hospital and on the mobile mammography bus. What steps have you taken on the mobile mammography unit to ensure the safety of both you and your patients?
So the registration clerk does not bring the patient in right next to her anymore. So now all your information is usually asked out in our little waiting area. So since that's the case, now our spacing is a little different and we don't usually have more than 2 people on a bus at a time. We may have to ask you to stay in your car for a few minutes just so we can finish with the personal information of a patient before we bring you in. After each patient, we're wiping down the seats. We're wiping down where you've touched. We've wiping the doorknobs down. not that we weren't doing these things before, but it's even more so now.
Yeah, and I'm finding that with a lot of the medical folks that I've been talking to. They, you know, before COVID, a lot of these medical facilities were operating as if there was COVID. They just kind of maybe even advanced beyond your normal disinfecting, you know, after the COVID issue became aware, you know, everybody knew that it existed. Then it kind of doubled your protection there from a sanitation standpoint. So,
and most people now, they're not wanting to go to the hospital. They're still a little leery about that. And I've had a few patients are talking how they rather come on the bus now.
Sure.
Which is true. You know, you walk on the bus, it's very small. You don't have very much to touch and be around. So you pretty much, and you're not on there more than about 15 minutes.
BJ Pawn and Gun has been servicing the Livingston Parish community since 1990. If you need it, there's a good chance BJ Pawn has it. So go see them in Denham Springs. They're a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. We have a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, who is amazing.
Yes.
She
makes me look stupid, man.
That
woman's way too smart. I mean, in a good way.
Totally good way.
A good way.
She, I watched, you know, I'm kind of a geek when it comes to any sort of hearing. I don't know what it is with me and hearings, but I love watching congressional hearings. And of course, they had her confirmation hearings last week, a week before. It was amazing to me watching this woman who is from Metairie, and this is why I bring this up. She's a hometown girl. I mean, she's right there in Metairie. She's South Louisiana all the way, and
Catholic.
A Catholic, and unbelievable as far as brains.
Yes.
You know, you have someone that basically was getting pretty much attacked in a lot of ways from a lot of people, and unflappable. Just had every answer. And I was thinking, you know, I don't care whether you're a Republican and Democrat, undecided.
Right.
If this woman doesn't get confirmed, it's a travesty. She was really that qualified. Very impressed with her.
Yes, I couldn't believe someone that qualified was living in Louisiana.
Yeah. Can you believe that? Yeah, and you know, we want to keep obviously
we like to
our
make
people
jokes.
here. Yeah, just kidding. So it was, you know, what blew my mind, Ivy, and I said, you know, I'm a deep thinker, believe it or not. I think very deeply, and so I'm watching all this, and I'm thinking, you know, here we are, and she's not the first woman to be a Supreme Court justice, but she is the most recent. It wasn't too long ago women couldn't even vote.
That's true.
And now they're sitting on the Supreme Court. Wow, we've come a long way in a short amount of time. That makes me proud.
I was watching some of the hearings. I didn't watch all of them in great detail or anything, but
I did. I can fill you in.
Good. But it did bother me just because if I missed it, please correct me. But the dismissal of Sandra Day O'Connor, and it was just Ruth Ginsburg and how Miss Bennett is going to be the next greatest thing, which and she will. But it's like Sandra Day was the first, and she was a conservative, you know, and she was, and then Ruth was that balance to that. They both came from very different backgrounds, and so it shaped their political views, and so does Amy. So I think it's relevant for everyone, but that was the only thing that really bothered me. It was like everybody wants to keep forgetting Sandra Day, and it just she was one of my idols. So from a legal perspective, and from women's rights too. I mean, she went from her story and Ruth Ginsburg's story is very similar in the sense that nobody would hire them. They were the token women in their law clubs. They both ended up having to work for their husbands for a period of time, work for out pay. because nobody was going to hire a woman. And then to go from that to being on the Supreme Court of the United States, it's just
unbelievable, Ivy. I mean, you know, to think about, this is like happened in our generation, pretty much. You know, it's from women, people that are growing up now, these, I guess, 13 to 20-year-olds, they don't realize that it wasn't too long ago. Women were not respected in those roles. They had roles, and that was in the kitchen and all those sorts of male chauvinistic things. I think it's amazing. That's the part of America that to me I love so much, is you will not find that in almost anywhere else in the world, where you can go from that to this that fast and not cause, you know, civil war, something like that. So
there's a great display at the Old State Capitol for women's movement and the right to vote and all that kind of stuff, and the suffragists and all that kind of. And there was, I've read a lot about the suffrage movement and that sort of thing, and the leaders and how they got there and everything, but I hadn't actually read a lot about the counter argument on why women shouldn't have been given the right to vote. I don't know. I just hadn't had a lot of that material in front of me, but they had some of those there. And so I spent a lot of time reading that. And one of the ones I liked the most was, it was like 12 things that if we give the women the right to vote, this is what's going to happen. And one of them was they'll get elected to public office. They'll want to go to work. They won't want to have babies. They will make laws that men have to follow. And could a man take orders from a woman? And I think one of them was they would be judges, and they could be judges, and then they would decide a man's fate. And it was funny because every single thing on there ended up becoming true to some extent. Not that women don't want to have babies, but you know, that has changed over time as well for a variety of reasons. But and it was funny because it was true. It really is. And it wasn't the end of the world that women made laws that men had to follow.
Well, and that was the point at the time that was written. You know, it was like, you don't want this. No. They're going to start like making laws.
I'm going to tell you what to do.
Yeah. No more babies.
No more babies.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that it's just blows my mind how far this country has come from that point. And these women like Sandra Day O'Connor, those are people that really need to be in the forefront of everybody's mind, that they changed those things and made them better. So kudos and congratulations to our newest Supreme Court Justice. Very proud that this lady is from South Louisiana and super smart. Her and John Kennedy went after it on it in a good way. He was, you know, doing his question, and he's so funny when he does this stuff. You know, no, let me think here. You know, he's hilarious, but his, you know, what a lot of people don't realize, he's a extremely smart individual. This guy's highly educated. I think he's a Rhodes Scholar, or maybe McHugh's off screen, but where did he get I know you know. Is it a Rhodes Scholar?
Yes.
Okay.
He went to Oxford.
In Oxford, yeah. So he's major brain power. And so him and her, it was like watching Superman and Batman or something like that go at it, or Batwoman. Is there one of those? Anyway, so they go at it, and he's asking her things that obviously he knew the answer to, but he was wanting everybody to hear how knowledgeable this woman was. She was spitting out precedents that I was like, how did she know that? I mean, hundreds of them. You know, well, there was a precedent back in 1917, and she would go through the whole thing.
Specific quotes out of it and stuff, and I'm like, I don't even remember all the code article numbers, and she's got exact quotes memorized.
I can't even remember my grocery list. You know what I mean? And this woman's saying precedents for 1917 just blew my mind. So so awesome for her, and she is not a sponsor.
Without her notes too.
Without her notes, and that's impressive. So we're going to talk about you now. Get back to you, Ivy. So you give back a lot, and that's one of the most impressive things about you. You are obviously busy with your law firm, but yet you find time to serve your community. And you're very active. You serve on several boards, including TARC, and you're on the library board of directors. And you've been a long time member of Rotary. So I want to discuss a little bit about a few of those. Let's talk about TARC. What does TARC do? Who are they?
TARC is a non-profit organization in Hammond or Tangipahoa, but they do service. They do have clients in Livingston, and they provide services for disabled children and their families and disabled adults. And they also have a baby program for preemies. So it's part of the program is if you can work with preemies early enough, they will be caught back up by age 2 or 3. And be on the same, if part of their early birth is giving them any sort of delays.
I see. Okay, so are these mental disabilities or are these physical?
Mental, physical, all of the above.
I got you. And I actually, for Leadership Livingston, I did our small group. We worked with LAC, which is in Walker, the Louisiana Activity Center, and for challenged adults, and has been a kind of a changing experience for me. So those things.
It's so great they've been able to get a new facility.
Yes, absolutely. Beautiful little building over there in Walker. So you also do a little bit with the library. You're on their board?
Yes, I'm on the library board.
Like to read books, do you?
Yes. Well,
didn't get enough of that in law school.
I did actually. Like, that was the funny thing. People would always ask you, "Oh, you must like to read." I'm like, "No, I'm so sick of reading. What do you read for fun? Nothing, ever." No. It took actually quite a few years after law school to kind of pick up reading leisurely again, just simply because it's like I can't do this.
Yeah, I can imagine all this stuff.
But
Dane Arnold with Itradexchange has been enabling small business in the Livingston Parish area to save cash through his network of over 300 participating Livingston Parish businesses. Saving cash by trading services with other exchange members is what Itradexchange is all about. For more information, contact Dane Arnold at 225-205-3640 or visit itradexchange.biz.
Now with flood, if there is like I said, if there's a closing that's going to happen, and as long as you've got it in place the day of, even though the check with a lot of times with flood insurance that, it's not technically a bind like it would be on a home where I walk it through, I hit the bind button, they get a binder. Flood is more of an application. They send it in. Once the check is there, then they bind it for the date that was requested. So as long as it was sent in and postmarked before that, they're good with it. And as long as it was for a closing, it'll be effective immediately. Now, you can't call me up 2 days before the storm's supposed to make landfall and ask for flood insurance, because on something like that, if you didn't have it or you weren't required to carry it, there's a 30-day waiting period.
And totally understandable. I mean, if you've got, and that was going to be kind of my follow-up question was, what if you're not buying a house? What if you just have a house, you're not in a flood zone, and you're watching, local news, and on that local news cast, you're looking at the weather, and all of the sudden they say there's a storm and it's running right up Denham Springs, and we're going to flood or something like that. And then you pick up the phone. Yeah, I need flood insurance. Yeah. So I totally understand why you would have to cut it off. I mean, you would, people would just basically cancel their insurance every time there wasn't a storm in the Gulf, right, and reactivate it when there was. So there has to be some sort of responsibility there on the homeowner, right, that, if you're going to carry flood insurance, you're going to need to carry it all the time. Otherwise, if there's a storm in the Gulf, we can't write.
And a lot of times, and some of those other companies, especially, and most people don't know this on auto, a lot of our companies will cut off, like, you can get, your typical liability with collision.
Yeah.
but they won't cover comprehensive if it's in the Gulf.
Interesting.
So if you are trying to buy a new policy, or say you've had a car just sitting there, don't think you're going to go and get comp on it.
Yeah, and you'd probably be surprised. Well, you wouldn't be, but most listeners would probably be surprised how many people do that. So there's some notes for all you folks listening and watching, and that is, if there's a storm in the Gulf, you can't get comprehensive insurance. So probably a good idea to go ahead and get that, and that way you have it in case there's a storm in the Gulf. Same thing with flood insurance. If you have a house right now and it's not covered under flood, definitely if you live in this area, get flood insurance.
And can I speak to something on that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so and I know I get this question all the time. Is like, why are we a zone X or preferred zone? Or why is that even considered a flood zone? Well, I mean, unless you live up on the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Everything, especially down here in South Louisiana, everything is a flood zone. Everything has the potential to have flash flooding. So when people don't understand the difference between A, AE, I mean, there's so many different flood zones, but X is usually the one that we require, or we talk about being a preferred zone. So with X, it's the cheapest typically. Like right now, $250,000 on your structure and $100,000 on contents. Right now, it's like $516.
Yeah.
So for that peace of mind, and think about all the people that, especially in Livingston Parish, like a newer neighborhood is going to be a zone X, because that builder, that developer, is taking that time to go Loma out everything to get it out of a flood zone to sell those properties, because you don't want to sell an entire neighborhood full of AE properties where people are paying, $1,200-$1,300 a year in flood insurance.
It's gonna be real hard to sell those.
So a lot of personal friends of mine that flooded were in newer neighborhoods that were zone X, and they ended up having to take out the government assistance loan to pay for their repairs because they didn't have that zone X. And what I've tried to preach to people is, and this is nationwide. 33% of all flood claims come from zone X properties. So even still, you're in the least, you're in the preferred zone, the least amount to, the one that's supposed to not flood or the least amount of flooding. 33% of all flood claims still come from that zone X.
Yeah. So take note, listeners, of what he just said. 33%, grasp that. So 33% of people that make those flood claims are not even in flood zones. That's almost half. So pretty much everybody needs to have flood insurance on your house. To me, it's no different than termite insurance, in that you may go your whole lifetime without having to use your termite insurance. Hopefully you do. But you purchase it every year in the event that you get termites. You likely won't, but you purchase it just in case. That was a tough word to get out, Jim. So you buy that. How about buy? Yes. You buy that just in case. So the same thing with flood insurance, except for that percentage is much higher than people that get termites in their house.
Absolutely.
So, and on that subject, one thing I saw bite a lot of people, especially in Livingston Parish after 2016, was they were older folks. They had paid off their homes, so they had no mortgage. And they canceled their required flood insurance if their mortgage would have them, they require that you carry flood insurance. Well, even if they were in a flood zone, as soon as that opportunity came, they paid their mortgage off and they canceled it. I am someone who, fortunately, I had a mortgage, but I was getting close to the end of it. And I had said about 1 million times before that, I cannot wait until I pay off my mortgage so I can cancel my flood insurance. It was higher than, I don't know what zone I'm in, but it was not a zone X. So it was pretty high. And in addition to that, I had never flooded, lived there 20 years, never flooded. Matter of fact, since even in the 83 flood, my house did not flood. My neighborhood did not flood in 83. Okay. So I'm like, there is no way it's ever going to flood. I don't even know why I'm in this AE or whatever it was. I'm just saying the name, but I don't know why I'm in this zone. It didn't even flood in 83. And, I ended up with 6 feet in my house. So, so from a perspective of, thank goodness, number one, that I was not so diligent in paying my house completely off. And because I would have canceled it, but I saw a lot of people, William, that they did that and they were in a bind because now you've got a destroyed house with no contents insurance, no flood insurance, and you know, basically you're older in a lot of cases. So you've got to come out of your retirement or whatever you have in savings, if you had anything, and you've got to rebuild a house from scratch.
Yeah, and another thing with that is most people didn't realize, because I had right after this a lot of customers that would, you know, they were wanting, or they would sell their house or starting to sell their house, and they would cancel their flood policy that had been in place for forever. And what some people didn't realize is whenever you cancel that policy, that it's still, that's a rate that's been there since the inception of that policy. A lot of times those rates are grandfathered in. So if you were in a non-preferred zone like an AE, you cancel your policy, you try to sell your house. Well, I was getting it for, you know, $1,200 a year. This other person tries to go get a flood policy, and it may be triple that because they were still on an old rate. And once and depending on the age of the house too, because if you kind of fall into these houses that are pre-firm, so pre-firm is 70, I think it's 73 if I'm not mistaken, 73 and older, that's a pre-firm rate. So anything like late 70s up into the 80s, when they were kind of still building houses without, I mean, a lot of those are going to be sitting below base flood elevation. And if you were on an original, basically a plan back then when you bought your house or built your house in the 80s, and you go to sell it now, that whatever policy you were paying for is not going to be the same rate that other person would get. Right. You know, and that I had to explain that to many a customer, because they were like, well, why was I paying, $900, $1,100 a year, and now this person's getting quotes for $3,000?
Yeah, they kind of locked in.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of those, it's one of those things that you got to, don't cancel your policy because you're selling your house. I mean, in the event of, it doesn't make any sense. So why? And that was one of the biggest things, is why would you cancel your policy to begin with?
Right.
So it hadn't sold yet.
Until you hand over those keys, you could be in a bind. And I think a lot of people, fortunately, now, I think anybody that was here in 2016 would rather, cut off their left foot than cancel their flood insurance at this point.
Absolutely.
It taught a lot of people a hard lesson. And look, I was one that even though I have flood insurance, I did not have contents insurance because I'm not going to flood. Right. I didn't flood in '83. Right. So I didn't have contents insurance, but you better believe the second I had the opportunity to buy contents insurance after that flood, I did. Sporting Center in Denham Springs is your one-stop shop for team sports equipment, school uniforms, and promotional goods. Conveniently located next to the Antique Village since 1977. Sporting Center, your business means everything to them because your name rides on everything they do.
In my time as being a loan officer, being in the mortgage industry, it has always been important to me about establishing relationships, because at the end of the day, if I am just doing a mortgage loan for a paycheck, and we all have to support our families, if that is my sole reason for doing it, then I'm doing the wrong thing. Because as far as the way I look at it is the long-term relationship. I have customers that I did their original loans 20-something years ago. I've got one right now that I'm redoing that I did 15 years ago. I may not be, and I've gone through a couple of companies since then, just because of different things that's happened in my career and advancements that has presented itself. But they have found me, and that's because I built that relationship with them. And not only building the relationship, but just educating my buyers to know that they can reach out to me, and them not to just become a loan number in a system, and know that they can't call me and ask me any question that they may have. And takes me to my next thing is, up until COVID occurred, I attended every loan closing for the simple fact that no matter what my clients went through or what hurdles we jumped to get them to the closing table, if I always felt like if one thing went wrong, that was going to be the first thing that they remembered. And it was important to me to be there for them if they had any additional questions, and just knowing that they could always count on me. And not only that, is that shows them that if I'm going to go to that extent for them, when they're referring out to friends and family and hearing of someone else that may want a loan, they're going to think back to me. And not only are they going to think back to me, they're going to think of that realtor or that agent that referred them to me as well, and refer back to them for them to get that continued business. Because if I'm communicating with everyone throughout the process and being able to get that return referral, then I'm doing justice to everyone in the transaction, versus to just look at it as, oh, I have another loan under my belt. It's about building that relationship for the future loan and the future client.
So, and what I hear from all that is you actually care. You actually care about your clients and that's passion. That's a huge thing. And that is a aspect of leaders. And of course, this show is all about leadership. And that's a huge aspect of leaders that they all share, is that they're very passionate about what they do and they actually care. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that comes across, and that's things that people need to see and they need to feel out of your business. And I've seen it. I've known you a while, and so I'm glad that you brought that up. That's a very good point.